The man, the myth, the legend, Max Keown is here today. How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for coming on, man. I reached out. We haven't chatted in a while. We played football together way back in high school. Those were good times.
Yes, sir. The football days. I remember going to the first football tryout. I didn't even mean to play football, but my friend Pat was like, I'm going to a football tryout, and I was staying out at his cottage at the time. And he was going to be my drive back to town. And he said, well, come to a football tryout before I take you home. I said, I'm not playing football, man. Anyway, he made it past one practice. He didn't show up the next practice after the first one, and I played for 3 years. So there you go.
Yeah, that's funny, man. You were good. Little known fact.
Well,
All-star safety here.
I don't know. I had a limit to my career. I'm 5'6", 140 pounds. There's a certain time when the boys keep growing and it's time to hang it up. So
And yeah, I wish I could I wish there was tape. I wish there was more tape of that.
I
Good
know.
time.
Great times.
Um but yeah, man, I seen some of kind of your posts in the past, and I just kind of reached out, and you talk a little bit about mental health, and I wanted to get into your story, so you can hop right in wherever you like.
Yeah, man. I guess the first thing where I kind of presented any discussion about mental health was when I started a blog back in, it was either 2016 or 17, kind of as I was going through the most challenging time mentally, would be around that time. And I've kind of given little tidbits over the years of how I've been doing. It's not something I necessarily, uh, something that's necessarily my main focus in what I'm putting out there online, but it's something that I keep up with from time to time. And I think it's important to touch base and to touch in with yourself, and also to share it with whatever following you have, and your friends and family. So for me personally, back when I was a kid, I just remember having like a really great childhood in the country, of PEI. We kind of moved around a little bit in the North Shore region, and I just remember everything was as life seemed to be in the movies at the time when you're 6, 7 years old. And then I remember my parents sat us down in the living room one day, and they said that they were getting a divorce, and it just totally um, blindsided me as a kid, thinking that life was one way, and now it's going to change into something totally new. So from there, my mom moved out, and we kind of split time with my mom and my dad, and um, things were going pretty well. Like, my mom and dad both met new people. We were kind of settling into the new lives, and then my dad was with his girlfriend at the time, and this was all in grade 3. So it was the beginning of grade 3. My parents got divorced, and then by the end of the school year, the woman that my dad was seeing at the time had suddenly passed away, and it was kind of another big shock in terms of life for an 8-year-old. You don't necessarily see these things coming. And from there, my dad remarried with somebody new, and my mom got married after that. Um, and I just kind of associated these moments when they used to bring us into the room to have like a talk, as very negative. And I always viewed talking and speaking as this thing that led to great pain. So I was always afraid to talk about my feelings and open up about how I felt about certain things. And over the years, I learned that every person has a limit and a ceiling to those feelings, and eventually they're going to come out in some way. And I learned that, I guess through my early 20s, I was doing a lot of, reckless living, you would say. I was doing a lot of partying, I was in the Navy for a bit, so that gave me a good opportunity to kind of go to new places where I didn't know anybody and just, try and reinvent myself and really drink a lot and party and kind of avoid a lot of those feelings for a few years. And then I moved back to PEI. I did a year at St. FX University where it was just kind of continuing the same thing. Moved back to the island, and then from that point on, I kind of just decided like I just want to have a humble living. I don't really care about this career in the Navy or this academic career. I just want to come home, move into my own apartment, find a job that can sustain me, and I can just, be reliant on myself, and I don't have to worry about anyone um, looking after me. Um, so from there, I kind of got into the music scene, um, and I was in a relationship at the time, and I don't think I quite addressed the feelings. I kind of masked them with this new identity of music and this relationship I was in, and I thought I was opening up, but in reality, I wasn't. Because whenever I was working at this job when I got home, cleaning boats and doing a lot of like yard work at this boat dealership. Um, I remember there was one day at work when I just was not feeling well, and I went up to the boss and I just told him it was about an hour until the end of the day. It was like 4 in the afternoon. I just said like I don't feel good. I need to go home. And he's like, well, just take a seat and and it was something that I had not quite experienced before. I didn't know what was wrong, and then all of a sudden, I just felt rapidly worse, and it felt like something really serious was wrong. And in my mind, my brain just told me at that time, it's like you're gonna die. You need to go to the hospital. Um, so then I told him I was like, I need to get to the hospital right now. And he had one of the women who was working at the establishment. She drove me to the hospital. And on the drive there, I just remember my hands were getting seized up. I almost had like claws, and I was like, my heart was just beating so fast. I was sweating, and I had no idea what to do. And she was freaking out because she didn't know what was going on. Um, get to the QEH, and I'm just like coming inside, just like clenched up. I can't move. And first thing they ask is like, have you done any drugs? And I hadn't. Um, and then they hook me up into this bed. They rush me in right away. They start doing all these blood tests and heart monitoring and stuff. And they called my parents. So all my family came in. And by the time my parents got in, this whole thing had passed. And I was laughing. I was joking. I was just kind of laying in the hospital bed thinking how stupid this all was. And I didn't really register me what had just taken place.
Right.
Like I've had mental health uh, affect different people in my family, but it was never something that was really talked about.
Yeah.
So this whole experience was just I didn't quite know what had happened, even for months later. Um, and then
Did the doctors give you like that
eventually
at the time? Like, were they?
did they what? Sorry.
Did the doctors give you diagnosis at the time?
No, they didn't give me a diagnosis. They told me I had something that had to do with a blockage in one of the chambers of my heart or something, but they said it could have been at birth, and that was the only thing that they found. But they said, it's not an uncommon thing, and it's not a serious thing that is going to necessarily affect you. But that was the only thing that I remember they came back and said. So I left there not really having answers, and I stayed at my mom's house that night because she was a little concerned about me. But they just sent me right home and kind of business as usual. But then after that day, I started experiencing more frequent panic attacks. Is basically what it was. It was this anxiety turned into like a physical attack, I guess, not necessarily uncommon, but if you don't know what it is, it can be pretty scary. And even if you do know, it can be um, kind of scary. So this went on for probably a period of a year, and I'd say 8 months of the year, it was pretty much daily.
So was
Yeah,
it sort of thing that would come on where you feel like your heart is pounding and the hands too?
the hands would happen kind of when it got serious. But yeah, it was like insomnia. I wasn't sleeping at all. Um, yeah, the heart would just start going and going, and um, like I said, at the time I was in a relationship, and in the middle of the night, she'd be asleep, and I'd just leave the room, and I'd lay on the floor in the living room. It'd be the middle of winter. I'd go outside in my underwear, and then I'd come back inside because I would go through like hot and cold spurts. I needed to be hot and I needed to be cold, and I think it was just a matter of like I needed intense like stimulation to let me know that I was still alive and still tethered to earth in a sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
very strange. But yeah, that kind of became like a daily thing. And then from there, you kind of accept that this is the way you're going to live forever.
Mhm.
So I just, I just assumed that it was going to be my life, until I died. And I didn't think I was going to live that much longer at the time. Like it was very bleak outlook, which led to uh, just basically trying to drown it out with alcohol for a bit. Um, at the same time, I'd be playing video games, just anything to get my head out of that. And it was as though I couldn't even face it for like a full year as it was happening.
So would you say it was kind of like a overwhelming feeling of unexplained emotion?
It definitely felt unexplained. I definitely couldn't pinpoint where it was coming from, nor did I really try to. It was just kind of like putting out little fires, not really locating the source, as they'd come up. And the little fires kept getting more frequent and a little bit bigger each time. Um, and it became this, it reached a point for me when my relationship was ending. I wasn't able to talk about this. And eventually my mom and I went out to dinner one day, um, and she'd experienced, some some mental health issues of her own over the years, and we got talking at lunch one day, and she just kind of told me that for years she hadn't had to deal with this stuff, but lately it had been resurfacing. And at that point we were in the middle of the restaurant, and I just started bawling and crying, and I just told her, I was like, me too, like I finally understood what it was that I was going through. um, and I could finally put a name to it, which helped me so much in uh, in the journey of the years to follow. But that conversation with my mom, um, I think it was in the winter of 2017, just really shifted my journey, and shifted the narrative of, this isn't something that's going to affect you for the rest of your life. Like this is something that you're going to get through, and there's going to be certain things you're going to have to do to get through it. And that's what I did. I just took stock of what I was doing and what I needed to be doing. Um, so it kind of started with the idea to record an album with music. I had saved up all this money from this trip I was planning to go on, and then when that didn't happen, I just decided like, well, now's the time to invest in yourself. And from there, it was writing songs and recording them to eventually getting back on my feet with like fitness and stuff too, which kind of really helped. Um, yeah, I'd say, 4 years since that started, like right now I'm in the best place I've ever been. And it's crazy to think it's been 4 years since that all started, but it's kind of like a blessing in disguise. I see it now that I'm out of it, I suppose. But yeah, anyway.
Right. Wow, man. So like, so you have that conversation with your mom, and that's kind of like the turning point. Where does it go from there? Like, where do you start? Where do you start?
Well, literally, I remember that day, as soon as I got back home, I wrote a song. Um, and it was written from a place that, you know, is where music should be written from. It's from this kind of glimmer of hope in like this dark patch of my life that this song kind of came. And from there, I was able to reach out to friends and some other members of my family just to say what I've been going through. Because it gets pretty easy to put on an act and to pretend that you're good. Um,
Yeah.
not that it's easy, but you get used to doing it. So just opening up to friends and other members of my close family was kind of the next step. And then um, I remember I tried to go to the gym because I knew I played sports, like you said, like we played football, and sports was my life, in high school and as a kid. And then there's probably about 7 years where I wasn't physically active at all, and I think that played a part in a lot of this stuff kind of bubbling up. Was I wasn't looking after myself, and I wasn't addressing uh, a lot of the issues that I was holding in. So I'd say a combination of those two things um, really led to the anxiety and whatnot. But I'd say that yeah, the first time I tried to go to the gym, I had to leave in like 5 minutes because my heart started beating whenever I was doing like a squat or something, and that just like onset the anxiety. So it was this like double-edged sword of like trying to better yourself, but also it reminding you of the feeling of that fear, and
Right.
it took time to get over that. And that's something I would say to people who are scared to exercise or to feel their body move and stuff. Like, I totally understand why you wouldn't want to do it for many reasons. Yeah, but just take it very slow, and it's pretty incredible what you can do in a few years. If you're really serious about getting better.
100%. I think I'm as a trainer, that's, it's just what I teach and work on with my clients all the time is just slow, small, sustainable steps
Mhm.
um, that are attainable, and just start there. And then it's amazing where you'll be, down the road. But I think it's
Totally.
just human nature to want to be all in right away.
Yeah, exactly. Like we want to just we compare ourselves to the other people sometimes, and we don't necessarily what's know what's going on behind closed doors with them. We see these people who might physically be an ideal for us, but they could potentially be dealing with things that we wouldn't have considered. And to just have compassion for other people and compassion for yourself. um you know this past year I ran my first marathon. 4 years ago I couldn't run down the street. It's like, you
That's
know
awesome.
it's it's not a it's not something I just did. The first day I wanted to try to go for a run. It's like it takes time, and allow yourself the time, as but hold yourself accountable, and have a schedule, and routine helps so much. But be gentle as you're being firm with yourself. Like, make sure to be gentle at the same time. Like, only you know yourself best, and you know what you need. But also, push yourself when you need, but take a back seat when you need to chill out for a bit. Allow for that too.
Yes, exactly. I really like the saying, any progress, no matter how small, is still progress. So, and I love what you're saying about like, make a list and be organized. And like if you make a list, and if you don't do everything on the list, but you did, like, starting with the small things,
Hmm.
you're still accomplished. You're still going to get better each day.
Yeah. And the small things, write down the small things too, because those feel just as good to check off the daily list. Like one thing I started doing was writing out a list of like 4 areas of my life that I wanted to kind of nurture and improve. And that was relationships, body, mind and spirit, and business. And it was like, if I can write down something to do each day, or something, or a person to reach out to, or what have you, from each of those categories every day, like, um, you're on your way to the person that you can be.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's interesting that we have like this, that the intuition or that inner pull to be that person. It's like we almost already know like what we should be, or what we think we should be, or we know the things we're not doing, I guess is a better way to put it.
Mm. Yeah.
But um but yeah, I think making a list is huge, like with anything in life. Like um I've noticed that now a lot. I'm just starting a business, so it's like make a list
Check it
and
twice.
check it twice and do the things on it, because you can get so lost. I think it just goes with everything. It could just be like, waking up in the morning, make your bed, brush your teeth. Like if you're not in a good mental state, you can totally get lost in what you're thinking about. And um even at like what time you wake up, and stuff. Like it's so easy to lose everything so quick. And if you're not in a good mental space, it just it adds fuel to the fire.
Yeah, it's like this, it's a weird circle because, the things that you need the most, like sleep, for example, um, that's kind of like one of the first things that will leave you when you're going through something mentally. Like your mind is so occupied, it's not allowing you to sleep, even though that's what you need the most. And it becomes like this kind of vicious daily circle. So you almost need to find like that little peg that you can just stick in the circle. And those are those things, brushing your teeth, making your bed, like those little things that you can just jam in the wheel to make it stop turning for a second, so you can, get a bit of leverage and kind of pop out, and to see the rest of the world, that it always exists out there. Like all the stuff in the world is still happening while you're in your little wheel. And just to get that perspective back, um, it can seem so self-centered at a time, and it's not like a selfish thing, you can't help it. But just to get that perspective back of life happening around you again,
Yeah.
really helps you find your place.
Yeah, that was huge. For me, I always feel that when I go out for walks in nature. I try to do that every day. But like it reminds you that it just humbles you, reminds you that, there's a lot more going on than just your little circle, as you put it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because you just get so caught up in it. It's like you're like looking down all day. You're not even looking up at what's around you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, well, so one thing for me that kind of helped, is just having goals eventually. Like when I started getting that perspective back again, it was like these, goals that were a little bit farther away from just today. So it was like my daily list of things I had to do, but also, okay, when do I want this album to come out? When do I want to run this marathon? And like writing down a date, in the future that you're kind of moving toward. And that kind of dictates what your day looks like. Your day isn't purposeless or meaningless. Like if you have
Yeah.
something kind of to look towards, that'll kind of, those things will fill in themselves. Like, oh, I need to record an album. Okay, book studio time, get rehearsal, figure out digital distribution. Like these things you wouldn't think of, they start to present themselves when you have that goal. Like those immediate things become much more clear once the bigger picture becomes clear, I find.
Yes. Yeah. And I think I think we need that. I think we need to be productive and occupied. Um, whether or not you're going through some sort of mental health struggle, I just think that we just feel better when we're productive and we're learning new things and we're applying ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how has music been helpful for you?
Well, music has been quite helpful lately for me. And it was funny because at a time, I would say it wasn't as helpful. I felt like I blamed it even for some of the ways that I was feeling back then. Because when you're going through a dark moment in your life, it's easy to say, if you've been playing music, it's easy to tell people I've been working on this and that, and it could be total bullshit. But it's easy to kind of isolate yourself from the world in the under the guise of creating something. So I used to have this relationship with music where I kind of used it as like an alibi, like a fake alibi, where I'd kind of be, I wouldn't really work on music. I'd kind of be doing other things that were not good for me, and use that as what I would tell people was going on. And eventually I grew to kind of resent um, listening to music and playing music. And that's when I really noticed, like, this is not this is not going well. Something, this is something that I've always loved my whole life, and now I have this relationship toward it that is just purely toxic. And yeah, if I felt very guilty uh, about it, and I didn't show it enough respect. um, so I think I kind of had to end a chapter of the music that I was doing at the time, and to kind of, like we said, like narrow my focus on what was important, and get away from uh, using it as this dark energy thing, and bringing light into it again, and kind of having that represent better my life that I wanted to move towards, and not necessarily what I was stuck in. Um, so with music for me, like, I've got the opportunity to have exchanges with people, and go places, and be part of festivals and showcases and things that I would never had the chance to do had I not been creating music. And I had to reassess my relationship with it. And yeah, I think that kind of came with setting the goal of the album. And if these are songs that I want to present to the world, like, it best be a true representation of um, me, and the kind of legacy that I want to leave behind to my family and friends and whoever else might pick it up. Like, I didn't want it to be uh,
Throw
this.
away.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been a constant, like any relationship, you're constantly reassessing and checking in, to make sure it's healthy, and to make sure you're on the right path. Um, and sometimes it's internally that happens, and sometimes it's externally. Someone will say, like, hey man, like, that song really meant a lot to me. Or one time we were playing at the old trail side in Mount Stewart, with my brothers Josh and Sam. And there's this old man who was there, he just turned 90 years old, and he got off the plane from Ottawa, and we were playing some old country tunes, and it was like a brunch seating, and his family was with him, and everyone's kind of pretty chill and just kind of applauding and whatnot. And this old man just gets up and starts clapping and stomping, and the biggest smile I'd ever seen on anyone. And at first, I thought this guy is just like crazy, and eventually I saw how into it he was, and I was like, man, this is so cool. Um, his daughter and his granddaughters came up to us afterwards, and my dad was really moved by it, and they just told us like, we've never seen our grandfather like this. We've never seen this side of him before. Like, thank you for letting us see this side of this man that we've never seen before. And it was just such a beautiful moment again that put it outside of myself. Like, it wasn't just about me, it was kind of about this connection, um, and the energy of this room and the music that was happening and the whole interaction with the people. And it's so easy to forget sometimes, but I always think back to that moment. And there's been plenty of moments where that connection you have with other people is what it's all about. And just to get out of the me mentality, and just to remember that it's all about the people who are there in front of you.
Right. That's beautiful, man. That's interesting. It's almost like it takes on a life of its own, right? It's like you you distribute it, but then it's like it's not yours anymore.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting, man. Um, do you find like the creative process is sort of a vent for you?
I think sometimes it is. And other times it's just nonsense. Like, sometimes it's a vent for the feelings. And yeah, a chance for me to go back to certain situations and explore them further. It's definitely been like great therapy, as people say. But I think more so for me now, like to I like to see it as the craft of songwriting. And I love country music, but I love so many other genres, and I love quirky poets. I think of Leonard Cohen and Gord Downie as Canadian poets who just happen to play music, and
Right.
more and more I'm kind of, just really trying to feel the space around me, and how I interact with that. Just going back to what we said about what's happening in the world around you, versus what's happening inside of you, and just kind of
Right. Right.
marrying those two worlds. Like, sometimes it'll be a very personal sentiment, but there'll be a lot of external things, and maybe I have a character that I've created that's kind of shielding some of that, for me. So it's kind of a combination of venting, but also, just observing.
Right. Yeah, that's super interesting, man. Um, did you, because I've noticed like in your posts, like, have you always kind of been into writing?
Yeah, well, ever since I was a kid, I used to love to write books. Like, at the babysitter when I was 6 years old, I'd be writing books about this mouse. His name was Audie the mouse, and he had a whole series. I gave him like a Christmas episode. I gave him like a Thanksgiving, and basically any holiday. It wasn't very creative, but any holiday, it would be this mouse, and what he would be doing during these holidays. Um, so yeah, I used to love doing that, and as I kind of went along in school, I started writing raps in high school. That was the thing
Oh,
I
damn.
used to
Speaking of
just.
videos, dude, I wish we were one of those.
Ah. Oh boy, yeah. If we could go back, some of those notebooks, man. I remember my mom found one, and there's some nasty shit in there. My mom found it, and God bless her. She told me, yeah, I found your notebook there. I said, yeah. What do you think of that? She said, well, guess that's all right. Just that was it. So I think she knew I was just going through something. So yeah.
Yeah. Some less than heavenly words in there.
Yes, for sure. a lot of disparaging words for a lot of my teachers at the time, and
That's funny, man. You got to come into retirement and start rapping too.
yeah, you know, I dabble with it the odd time here and there. If I hear an instrumental beat, I will go off the top for a little bit. But yeah, no, it's a fun brain exercise, but I don't quite have the delivery as I do for country music.
Oh man. Um, so so really it was kind of a transformation over 4 years for you.
Yeah, about 4 years. Yeah, and it's not all been, you know, steady up. There's been dips here and there, and you know, week by week, there's moments, you know, just it's just life. Um, it's gonna have its ups and downs, but just to recognize the difference, recognize the possibility that you're not necessarily stuck, but you are going through it, and to accept that, but then to also accept the fact that you can get out of it too. Um, yeah, so that's kind of been, you know, the journey for 4 years. Now I'm, uh, it's funny, like when COVID hit, I'm quite an introverted person in some senses, but I love to meet up with friends and, you know, perform and things like that.
Right.
So as I'm getting more comfortable, like socializing again, like after that period of wanting to just be alone and isolated, like, you know, 2020 hits and it's like you're kind of forced into isolation. I know a lot of people, you know, it was a very hard year. Luckily, I had some great um, supports in my life with my family, my girlfriend, and friends. You know, like just been just been like, yeah, so huge in my life. I'm so lucky to have everybody that I have. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's yeah, your connections are crucial, like the people, the close people around you. But I think during quarantine, it was it kind of showed everybody that too, and like how much maybe even if you're not the most social person, how much you need social interaction.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it gave people a lot of uh, time to kind of explore what, you know, they were putting up with when they were forced to, whether they got laid off or whether, you know, they had to isolate or whatever it was. Like time alone with your thoughts can open up some interesting doors.
Yes.
And there's, you know, I think when I was in the Navy, I just real quick, I remember one night where there was, you know, we'd gone through this storm. And when you're out on the middle of the ocean on the ship, like there's no one coming to save you. You know, you're
Just gotta
stuck.
swim.
You just, yeah, right. Like you just, you know, the water, like the boat was basically going like this, and I was like hitting my nose on the floor, like on the deck, whenever the ship would go off like this. That's how bad it was. And
Wow.
my bunk, I was in the top bunk, and we had little seat belts that you'd strap into at night, like if it was really rough seas. And mine wasn't working, so I just constantly hit my forehead on the ceiling. And I was like, this is the worst. But then, you know, we got through that storm, and on our way back home, we hit this glossy ocean that was just, you know, there's no light pollution out there. It's all stars. All the lights in the ship are off in the middle of the night, and we're just gliding like butter over the water. And I remember standing outside in the bridge wings. I was like 19 years old, 18, 19 at the time, and just had like a real appreciation for my family and a real appreciation for music. And I started making a list of all the people I wanted to reach out to when I got home, all of the things I wanted to start doing, all the meals I wanted to cook, and like things that people have cooked for me over the years. I made a list of like, I got to reach out to this person and find out how they made this casserole or whatever. And yeah, it's just like,
Yo,
such,
grandma.
yeah, no, a lot was grandma. Um, but yeah, it was just like such a I guess, a metaphor in a way of the ocean being so terrible and scary one night to the next night being the most beautiful thing and the most beautiful place I'd ever been in my life. Um, so that's another moment I look back to in my life when I can just put things back into perspective if I need to again, when shit's hitting the fan and you're hitting your head. You just yeah.
Did you fear for your life at that time, at that night?
I think I initially did until I saw how calm the senior officers were acting. Like my everything in my body was telling me this is not good. But I saw how relaxed the officers and the chiefs were, and that just goes to show like the level of leadership and the experience of them. Because for me, I could go either way. I could just start freaking out and I'd be useless, or I could see that they're calm and that would make me calm. Like I looked up to those guys, and just to see that they were okay through this, like okay, like oh yeah, no, I guess we're okay here. Like we're gonna make it through. And that just became the mentality of, yeah, we'll get through this, instead of, oh my God, oh fuck, what's happening? Like you can change that conversation in your head. Sometimes it's by seeing someone you admire or respect. Um, and then eventually you start to become the person that remains calm in those situations, and then,
Right.
maybe help someone else.
Yes. I think that's important too with maybe not in such a extreme situation, but even just in life, just to be able to remain calm, calm down, and take a deep breath, and kind of like you described a few times in your life, like just reassess
Hmm.
the way things are going.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I love everything you said, man. I think like it just goes to show too, like I like the saying how like um, you have to really repeat those actions every day. It's like happiness is rent and rent's due every day. You gotta do the things that, like, I'm sure you still do those things every day. So
Hmm.
I think sometimes we think that you arrive, like people always think they're going to arrive, but I just think it's interesting how you just have to continually do the things to maintain yourself physically and mentally.
Yeah, that's it. You realize it's not that destination. I remember I just watched the other day that Disney movie Soul. You hear about that one?
Oh, I didn't see it, but yeah, I heard about it.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, there's this quote in the movie that was really good, and it was, basically the premise is, there's this guy who's like a musician, and he's about to get his big gig. I won't give it all away, but spoiler alert. But anyway, he finally, you know, gets this opportunity that he thinks, he should be feeling like he's made it, and he
Yeah,
realizes he doesn't necessarily feel um, he doesn't feel what he thought he'd felt when he got there. And then the woman that he was performing with told him the story of like this little fish was in the water, and said to another fish, like, you need to help me, I'm trying to get to the ocean. um, and the other fish said to him, well, like, look around, you are in the ocean. And then the fish said, what do you mean, I'm not in the ocean, I'm just in water. So it's like you think that, a certain thing is going to bring you a certain level of success, or it's like a destination, but you're right, it's constantly um, doing those things, and accepting yourself as already being there and already being uh, complete. And these things are just the maintenance, because life is already beautiful, and there's not any destination that's going to make you happier, any job or any amount of money. It's like it's already beautiful, and these are just things that are just gonna help our experience along the way. But it's not going to change the way we feel about the world or ourselves, or our relationships.
Yes. No, exactly. Yeah. That's perfectly put, I think. It's interesting though, because it's like I think in our society, like, everyone, like, we lose that a lot, I think. And I think just in general we lose that. We get wrapped up.
Hmm. Yeah, is well, it's very, very easy with, with social media and everything. It's easy to get caught up in the problems and the negativity of the world, and also comparing yourself to other people. And those are two things that almost become an addiction. Like, even for me, when I was going through anxiety and stuff, like it almost became an addiction, um, to that dark feeling, because of the immediate good feeling that would come after one of those attacks or one of those episodes. It's like you're feeling like you're about to die, and then when you don't, it's like this huge sigh of relief, and that becomes like a scary addiction too. And I think that could be said for social media and these things that want us to, I don't know if there's any sort of like agenda behind the unity of social media, but interests, would make people want to feel worse about themselves so that they can buy products to, sell them the illusion that they're feeling better, or show them a picture of someone who appears to be looking better, or traveling to more exotic places. And, that comparative mindset is something we always need to check. Um, but yeah, it's again, just going back to the perspective of, just because something's portrayed one way doesn't necessarily mean that it is that way behind the scenes.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think the simplest example would be like the muscle thing. Like, you could see someone with, you could have like huge muscles but a small life,
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, man, I just want to say thanks so much for coming on and sharing. And yeah, I really appreciate you. Really appreciate you coming on, man.
And I appreciate you having me and asking me to do this, because it's obviously something that I've shared before, but just to be able to do it in depth like this is great for me, and it's great for hopefully people watching as well. And I feel like it can definitely feel like, there might not be someone who understands or someone to talk to, but there's always someone kind of going through something, even if you feel like it's stupid, or someone won't get it. Like, it's worth talking to the people that you love about. And yeah, man, just thanks so much for what you're doing. And yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much, buddy. That really is just the thought behind the podcast, is just to was just that, just to share the story and just to make people understand and feel, let them know they're not alone. Because I think that's so common. I'm sure you felt like that too, where you just feel like so alone, and you minimize it. You just think, oh, it's not that bad. Like, I can deal with this. Um, these aren't real problems, whatever it is. But until it really is a real problem. But but thanks, man. I'm gonna send you some salts. We got our sponsor here. This is the Prince Edward Island Sea Salt Company. So we got 4 different
Sweet.
kinds of salts here. 40% of all proceeds go to mental health programming on PEI. So
That's
everybody go
awesome.
check that out, and I'll send you those.
Thanks,
And
brother.
check out Lawrence Maxwell on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you can find them.
That's
Beautiful
right,
music.
buddy. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks, Maddie. See you, man.